It was a gray, drizzly Monday morning, the kind of morning where even the most determined people hesitate to leave their beds. The small roadside diner where Emily worked smelled of fresh coffee and buttered toast, a tiny haven against the gloomy weather. Emily, only 24, wiped down the counter with practiced movements, her hair tied up in a messy bun and her uniform slightly wrinkled from the early start. Her eyes looked tired, but her spirit radiated warmth. At around 7:30 a.m., the bell above the door jingled weakly. An old man stepped inside, moving slowly, as if each step took every ounce of strength he had. His thin, soaked coat clung to his frail body, and water dripped steadily from the edges onto the checkered floor. His shoes were cracked, soles almost coming apart, and his hands trembled slightly as he took off a battered hat, revealing a head of thin, wispy gray hair. Emily glanced up from the register and offered a soft smile. "Good morning, sir. Please, take a seat wherever you'd like. I'll be right with you," she called, her voice cheerful despite the emptiness of the place. The old man shuffled to a corner booth, the one farthest from the window, as if trying to hide from the world outside. He sat down with a heavy sigh, his shoulders slumping forward. Pulling out an old leather wallet, he flipped it open, counted a few worn coins, and stared at them with tired eyes. The sadness on his face seemed deeper than the rain outside, the look of a man who had lost more than just money, perhaps hope too. Emily walked over with a pot of coffee and poured him a steaming cup. "Here you go, sir. Would you like anything else today? Maybe some toast or a muffin?" she asked, hoping to offer a bit more warmth. He shook his head. "No, just coffee. Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely more than a breath, rough and weak, like dry leaves rustling. He clasped the mug with both hands, as if trying to absorb its heat into his bones. Emily noticed his fingers, thin, knotted with age, and marked with tiny scars, struggling to hold the cup steady. She saw his eyes drift back to his wallet, lingering on the few coins he had left. She knew that look. She had seen it in her own mirror some nights, when she counted tips and worried if she'd make rent or buy her mother's medicine. While other waitresses might have ignored it, Emily couldn't, even though she had her own troubles, overdue bills, a landlord threatening eviction, a mother needing constant care. She felt a tug in her chest stronger than logic. In that moment, she made a quiet decision. When she returned to the counter, she slid a small sticky note under the register. "Old man's coffee on me." She tucked the note away so the manager wouldn't notice and kept moving as if nothing happened. After a few minutes, the old man reached for his wallet again, preparing to count his coins for the check. Emily approached him with a soft laugh and laid her hand gently over his. "No need today," she said warmly. "It's on the house. Just take your time. Enjoy the warmth." He looked up sharply, his eyes shining with surprise, as if he had forgotten kindness even existed. His mouth trembled as he tried to speak, but no words came. Instead, he gave a slow, grateful nod. At that instant, Emily saw something shift in his gaze, a quiet spark, fragile and almost hidden, like a small light flickering in a long tunnel. She walked back to the counter, heart oddly full, despite her empty wallet. She didn't know that this tiny act, this one cup of coffee, would soon ripple through her life in ways she could never imagine. Emily moved around the diner, her steps light, her face calm. She refilled coffee pots, cleared plates, and smiled at the few regulars who came in despite the rain, but somewhere in the back of her mind, she kept glancing at the old man in the corner. He sat silently, cupping his coffee as though it was a rare treasure. Every now and then, he raised it slowly to his lips and took tiny sips, each one drawn out, savoring the warmth. His eyes followed Emily as she worked, noticing how she bent down to talk to a small child coloring at another table, how she gently adjusted a coat on the shoulders of an elderly woman leaving the diner, how she offered extra napkins to a truck driver who looked exhausted after a long night. There was something natural and sincere in her kindness. She didn't force smiles or put on a show for tips. It came from a genuine place. Even when no one was watching, she moved with a quiet grace, choosing to serve and comfort rather than complain about her long shift or her own hardships. The old man pulled a small, worn leather notepad from the inside pocket of his coat. His fingers shook slightly as he flipped it open. On the yellowing pages were dozens of scribbles, names, notes, small reflections. With a thin pencil, he started writing something quickly, his brows furrowed in focus. His gaze kept moving between Emily and the page. Once done, he carefully slid the notepad back into his coat, as though it were a precious secret. Emily, unaware of this, kept going. She even sang softly to herself when the diner was empty for a few minutes. Her voice was gentle, a little shaky, but full of life. She cleaned off a table by the window, pausing to look out at the rain as it slowed to a drizzle. In those moments, The old man saw more than just a waitress. He saw a young woman with a tired but fighting spirit, a quiet dreamer hiding behind worn shoes and an apron. Someone who still believed in small acts of goodness even when life offered her little in return. When the old man finally finished his coffee, he took a deep breath and stood up slowly. His knees cracked faintly, and he steadied himself against the edge of the table. He shuffled toward the counter where Emily was stacking plates. She turned, startled, but quickly offered him a warm smile. "Did you enjoy the coffee?" she asked. The old man nodded. "Very much, thank you, dear." You didn't have to do that," he said, his voice low and sincere, almost fragile. Emily shrugged lightly, trying to play it down. "Sometimes, we all need a little kindness." "It was just a coffee," she said, though deep inside she knew it meant more. He looked into her eyes for a long, silent moment. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding, a shared pain, perhaps, or a shared hope. Then, almost as if it cost him great effort, he reached out and gently took her hand. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emily," she replied softly, surprised by the question. He nodded slowly, his eyes studying her face as if he wanted to memorize every detail. "Emily, a beautiful name for a beautiful heart," he whispered. She laughed awkwardly, wiping her hands on her apron. "Thank you. That's very kind of you," she said, her cheeks flushing lightly. He gave her a final, deeply meaningful look, one that carried gratitude, warmth, and something more mysterious. Then he let go of her hand and turned toward the door. As he stepped outside, the drizzle had stopped, and a faint glow of morning light broke through the clouds. Emily stood there, watching him as he disappeared down the street, his thin coat flapping slightly in the breeze. She felt an odd heaviness in her chest, a mix of sadness and something she couldn't quite name. After he vanished from sight, she shook her head and turned back to her tasks. Life didn't stop. There were dishes to wash, orders to take, bills waiting at home. She pushed away the encounter, telling herself it was just another day, another small good deed. She had no idea that in that moment, her life had already begun. To change the old man was not who he seemed, and she had no way of knowing that her simple act of kindness would soon echo back in ways more powerful than she could ever imagine. 3 days later, the morning started like any other. Emily arrived at the diner before sunrise, the smell of brewing coffee filling the air as she tied on her apron and set up the counter. She was moving on autopilot, exhausted but determined. As always, she had been thinking about the old man a lot since he left. Something about his eyes, that final look he gave her, wouldn't leave her mind. But life pressed forward. Rent was due in a week. Her mother's medicine bills were piling up, and she still dreamed of somehow saving enough to study art, though it felt more and more impossible each day. Around 9 a.m., the door of the diner opened with an unexpected force. Emily turned, expecting to see a regular or a delivery man. Instead, 2 sharply dressed men in black suits stepped inside. Their presence instantly changed the energy in the room. Heads turned, even the cook peeking out from the kitchen fell silent. One of the suited men scanned the diner, spotted Emily behind the counter, and walked straight toward her. "Are you Emily Carter?" he asked in a firm, formal voice. Emily's heart raced. She nodded cautiously. "Yes, that's me. Is something wrong?" Her mind spiraled. "Did I serve something bad? Am I in trouble?" Without a word. The man handed her a thick envelope. It was heavy and cream-colored, sealed neatly. Emily took it hesitantly, staring at it as if it might explode. The second man stepped forward and added softly, "This is from Mr. Howard. He asked us to deliver it personally and make sure you received it safely." Her mind flashed. Mr. Howard. She felt her knees weaken, recognizing the name from the small talk she'd had with the old man. With trembling fingers, she tore open the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter on elegant stationery paper. The handwriting was delicate but strong. "Dear Emily. Your kindness touched me deeply in a world where kindness is rare and often conditional. You gave without expecting anything in return, and that is true wealth. I am not a poor old man. As I appeared, my name is Charles Howard, and I have spent my life building companies and wealth beyond what most can imagine. But I have been searching for something money can't buy. Genuine, selfless kindness. You showed me that it still exists. You gave me hope. Enclosed is a small token of my gratitude. A check for $500,000. Use it to take care of yourself, your mother, and chase the dreams you put aside for so long. Thank you for reminding me that there is still good left in this world. With respect and admiration. Charles Howard. Emily's hands shook violently as she pulled out the check. Her eyes blurred with tears when she saw the amount. $500,000. Her coworkers rushed over, gasping. One of them grabbed her shoulders to steady her as she nearly collapsed. A regular customer stood up from his booth, covering his mouth in shock. Asterisk for a few moments. The diner froze in stunned silence. No plates clattered. No orders were called. No chatter. Emily felt the world spin around her, her breath shallow, her vision swimming. Asterisk minutes passed before Emily could fully grasp what had happened. The check felt heavy in her hands, almost unreal, like holding a fragile dream she'd never dared to believe possible. Asterisk she thought of her mother immediately, the overdue hospital bills, the constant worry that ate away at her each night. She thought of the tiny apartment they shared, the leaking roof, the broken heater. She thought of her sketchbooks hidden under her bed, pages filled with drawings she had long ago abandoned as impossible dreams. Asterisk the shock transformed slowly into waves of relief, then joy, then a deep, shaking sob that she could no longer hold back. Her knees finally gave in, and she sank to the floor, covering her face with her hands. The staff knelt around her, some crying too, hugging her tightly. Asterisk outside, the rain had stopped completely. The sky had cleared, revealing a bright blue with soft golden morning light pouring through the diner windows. It felt like a quiet miracle, as if the universe had finally paused to acknowledge all the silent battles she had fought alone. Asterisk the two suited men watched quietly, then nodded respectfully to her before leaving. They knew their job was done, and the rest was her story too, right? Asterisk Emily stood up slowly, wiping her tears, her hands still trembling. She looked around the diner, the place that had held her for years. The regulars who had become like distant family. The walls that had heard her quiet prayers and seen her private tears. Asterisk with a deep, steady breath, she held up the check to the light. Her dream wasn't just a dream anymore. Her mother would be safe, her debts gone, and her art school dreams, finally within reach. Asterisk stepping outside the diner, she felt the warm sun on her face. Emily tilted her head back, closed her eyes, and smiled through her tears. Asterisk, thank you, she whispered to the sky, her voice cracking but strong. Asterisk in that single moment, the entire world felt new, as if a door had opened to a life she had always deserved but never dared to expect. The kindness she once gave without a second thought had returned to her 1,000-fold, proving that no good deed is ever truly forgotten.